Imagine calling your parents for a meeting and sitting them down and telling them, Mom, Dad, me, I never want to have kids. How do you envision that conversation going? My guest today is an amazing lady who has decided, by the way, toys are not part of my future and it's okay. I've accepted and I've made peace with it. But some of the people around her have really struggled to accept that she never wants to have kids. At 52, she's like, you know what? I'm living life and thriving. We'll be unpacking that conversation here. But then she's told me something very interesting. There's a difference between child-free and childless. But just a polite reminder to hit that subscribe button. You can also connect with us on our social media handles. Na kama kawaida, if you want to be part of this podcast, we're going to put our email up on the screen and you can reach us and we will get in touch with you. For now, let's get into the topic. And we are back. My name is Susan Grace. Welcome to this episode of A Woman's Journal. Today I am joined by a lovely lady whom I've had the chance to chit-chat with even before we started. And let me tell you, this lady is just a ball of energy. I love her here. Wangeci, a big shout out to you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
You
look beautiful.
Thank you.
You know, Wangeci was telling me.
Yeah. As you do too.
Oh, thank you. Alikuwa ananiambia ati kuna watu wataona hii episode waseme, Wangeci, you have a dress.
True story.
Yeah.
True story. Yes.
Well, we love this podcast because maybe we're getting people out of their comfort zones.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Yes, you are. I even have makeup.
And you have makeup, which
I
is
have
also something rare.
You know, exactly.
Hey, we're changing things. We're changing everything one episode at a time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So for the person who's seen you for the first time, who is Wangeci?
Wangeci is someone's child. Wangeci is someone's sibling. Wangeci is someone's auntie.
Mm-hmm.
Wangeci is someone's relative. I'm also a founder or the founder of Good Housekeeping Africa, where I am an employer and domestic worker relationship coach. I advocate for both employer and domestic worker to create a harmonious and functional home environment because we need each other, we need to work. We need to work together. I'm also a creative in the food industry. And I dabble a little bit in voice acting and voiceovers.
Ooh.
So
and we'll give us something small in the British accent.
Like, oh my God. Like, are you talking to me?
Is that right?
Yes.
You know what? Say this statement both in British and in the American accent. Get me a glass of water.
Could you please get me a glass of water?
Ooh.
Or could you please get me a glass of water?
I'll take the water. Anyway, it's so lovely to have you here.
Thank you so much.
And you know, I posted on my Instagram and I was asking people, do you guys know any ladies who have decided they actually never want to have children? And you came flying in my inbox. You're like, yeah, me. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. Hey, Wangeci.
Yes.
And as we were talking earlier, you told me that you're 52. Is that something you're comfortable with me saying?
Yes, absolutely.
So 52 years of deciding me I don't want to is, where did this come from?
I don't know that it's somewhere that it comes from. I don't actually know, that you can pinpoint and say this is when I made that decision. But I remember having this, the first time I had this conversation, I was 14. I must have been 14 or 15. And I had this conversation with my shosho, my late shosho. She was such a darling. And I was making her laugh. And I always used to make her laugh because she used to find me very different from all her other grandchildren. And I remember saying to her, and I was speaking to her in my mother tongue, and I was telling her, Shosho, I don't think I'm going to have children. And she would love me, Shosho Dida Dashiana. And she was like, she would laugh and she would tell, and she would ask me why. And I didn't quite pinpoint, but I always knew that, and I have nothing against children, don't get me wrong at all. It's not that I don't like children or, but I categorize them as in, they have too many questions. Children have so many questions. And I'm always thinking like, oh my goodness, they have so many questions and they tend to, I have a bit of OCD. And so, you know, they tend to leave everything everywhere. They are messy.
Yeah.
Children are messy, you know? And I used to tell her, you know, children are noisy and they're very messy and which at that point didn't make sense because I was a teenager. My room was like a bomb hit it, you know what I'm saying? But still I was thinking, no. And thinking there are too many questions, you know? And I didn't think about it again until I was in my 20s. And then when I hit about 25, we spoke about this earlier, I started thinking, okay, maybe I want to get married and maybe I want to have children. And at the end of 25, both those feelings went away and they never came back. Yeah, and they never came back. So I don't know. I don't know how I came up with that, especially at such a young age for you to feel so strongly about something.
About children.
Yeah, about children. Yeah.
And you know, most people, when they hear a woman has decided, me, I never want to have twins, they're like, there must be something about her childhood.
Yes.
Is there something unique about your childhood?
No. I grew up in a very loving, I had a very loving childhood. I was best friends with my dad, my late father. You know, they always say that daughters and mothers clash. Me and my mom used to clash, obviously, because my mom wanted, you know, the perfect daughter, the girl who wears the dresses and I just was not that. I grew up with boys, so even when I came home, I was probably dirtier than my brothers because I was playing nyabs. You know, I was on playing marbles. I would come and, you know, I've hiked up my skirt and, you know, I'm the one playing. And my mom would look at me and she's just thinking, what happened? Why is my only daughter like this? You know? So I remember my dad being a present. My dad was a present dad. My mom was a present mom. And yes, and they both had careers. They've been in business and not necessarily employed. In fact, you know, like I was just thinking about it when you said, let's come and talk about it and thinking about, is it because of my upbringing and my childhood? No, my dad came for all my swimming galas. He came for my track and field. He came for when I was singing, when I was lead singer in my choir in school. He came for all of those. So it's got nothing to do with the way that you know, it was just, I guess it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yes.
But now there's a little plot twist. Somewhere in your 40s, you ended up pregnant.
Yes.
What happened? I thought we were not having children.
I know, you know, you know, God's plans for you. You know how it says Jeremiah 29:11, where it says, you know, I know the plans that I have for you. You know, it happened. I decided that I was going to have the child, but I don't necessarily think I was doing it for me. I was doing it because my parents really wanted me to have a child. But 2 months in, I lost the child. And it's very unfortunate because I could see the sadness that came with that. You know, in the African society, typically we don't want to talk about those things, but you know, your story could help somebody else who's feeling that they're detached. I think that I was detached, and I'll be honest, I think I felt sadness because I didn't get to do this for my parents. And I remember my doctor having a conversation with me and saying, you know, you can, you know, you're healthy, you can do this again and whatever. And I was like, no, I don't want to do this. And, you know, a lot of women go through a lot of grief when that happens. I think I was sad for maybe a week or two. And again, it is because of the sadness I felt for my parents, but not necessarily the sadness that I felt for myself. I didn't grieve. I didn't feel that I needed to.
Also, for you, it was more of, I feel bad that I'm not able to give my parents a grandkid. It was, okay.
Yeah, it was not for me.
So say you didn't lose a child. I mean, did you think about it? Like, now you being a mom and you're coming from a place of, me, I don't have to.
I thought about the fact that I'll have some great support. My family, you know, my family was looking forward to it. I had told them earlier on because, you know, at the time my father was unwell, and I remember having a conversation with my stepmom, and she was saying, you know, maybe we need to tell him because it's going to give him a boost that, you know, his first daughter is having a baby, and it boosted him, and he was happy, and you know, and I saw the happiness, and so I knew that I would have all the support that I wanted. Yeah, I did, but I'd never, you know, I think later on is when you start really thinking about, okay, I mean, I started thinking about, okay, my lifestyle is going to change. Yeah. This is going to change. And, you know, I'm going to have people permanently in my home because I'm going to have a domestic worker or a nanny. And I was thinking, all of these people are going to be in my house all the time. And there's going to be a little person saying, you know, mommy, I need this, or mommy, I need that. I was like, oh my goodness.
And then you're OCD, so
And I have
you also
OCD,
have a kid
so,
living everything everywhere.
Yeah, so that was going to be a challenge. Yeah, I hadn't thought that far.
Yeah.
And maybe I almost knew that maybe I wouldn't get that far.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh my. But your mom, how did she take it when you told her, me, baby, this kids thing is a no for me?
My mother and I had a exchange of words, not mean words, but my mother, of course, this was in my 30s, so we're talking, you know, 20 years ago. She thought I was selfish for not wanting to have children. And, you know, we had an argument where she said, you know, but I gave birth to you and I think that you should. And I think that you're selfish by doing this. It's not the first time I'd heard. It's the first time I'd heard it from somebody who loves me in terms of my family by saying that. And it actually shocked me a little bit. But we got over it. And I said, you know, mommy, everybody is entitled to a choice. And even now, she's all for it and she's okay with it.
She finally accepted.
She finally came around. Everyone finally came around. Yes.
But at 52, you must be getting a lot of negative comments, because I feel like we as a society, we've not yet embraced the whole narrative of not every woman wants to have a child. In fact, even men, not all men want to have kids.
Not all men want to have kids, but we don't talk.
Oh.
These are not discussions that we talk about.
People don't want to talk about this uncomfortable
No, they
conversations.
don't. Yes,
but maybe we'll unpack that one of men later.
Yes.
But now for you as a 52-year-old, you must get a lot of people saying maybe bad things towards you or stigmatizing you for making that choice.
I think there's a lot of things in Africa where, and we're going to speak about the continent because, you know, out there, they're willing to have these conversations. But, you know, we in Africa, we're taught to grow up with secrets. And even like yesterday, I was having this conversation with one of my closest friends, and we've never had this conversation. And I said, you know, Susan Grace is going to interview me regarding the fact that I'm over 50 and I'm child free. And she said, are you sure? You know, people are now going to know your story. People are going to see you, you know, people you know are going to see you talking about this. And I said, but is there a secret? Is it a secret that, you know, I'm sure that there are people who've always wanted to ask me this question, not that it's any of their business, but they've wanted to ask the question like, Wangeci, why did you make this choice? And I can tell you from my 10 fingers, I can tell you at the top of my head, women who decided, and men, that they didn't want to be parents, that they wanted to be child-free. And we do have a stigma, and I get people asking me the question, and some people have turned it around and they said that I've become rude because, you know, you get the aunties who say, don't you regret not having kids? And I say, do you regret having them?
Oh,
you know, that's, you know, we don't talk that way. You're not, and it's true, because why would you ask me a question like that? Because it could be that I was not able to have kids. It could be that I tried everything. And so when you ask that question, first, it's really none of your business. And as Africans, we need to stop being in other people's business. You know, it's like how you go somewhere, you haven't seen an auntie for so long, and they're like, huh? You ate all the matoke when you lived in Uganda. You know, and they tell you, you know, we don't feel, there should be some shame. There should be some shame to the questions that you ask. So you also see, when you see on social media people, and it's both men and women, who literally will tell you, first, you're selfish, you're going to regret later on, you're going to, and then they're like, what are you going to do when you get older? Who's going to take care of you? And I feel that if you're having a child or children so they can take care of you when you're older, isn't that like a form of black tax? Like you're already placing it on their heads that when I get older, you're the one who's going to take care of me. And there are those people who did have children and they lost their children and they're going to grow old alone. So what happens to them? And then there's the people who say, you know, like, you know, the other day when they said the childless cat ladies, you know, that was being said out there about women who have decided not to have children. So there is a stigma that goes with it. People judge you. They say, you know, you can't take that one seriously. You know, they decided not to have children. But the same respect that we give, I respect mothers so much because, my God, it's such a thankless job. It really is such a thankless job where your child blames you for everything that went wrong in their life. I respect them, but I also feel that a parent should also respect that this is the decision that I have made. And I have seen, again, when you're reading social media, where literally you'll find men and women saying, then what is your purpose? If you're not going to have children or if you're not going to get married, what is your purpose?
Because they tend to make it look like your entire identity and your entire purpose revolves around the kids that you'll have.
Exactly.
Whoa.
And it shouldn't be that way. It is a decision that you've made and you've thought about it. And sometimes you don't even think about it. You just find yourself moving along and it never presented itself. But in this case, it presented itself. It's not something that I wanted permanently in my life. Yeah.
Has it been hard, maybe trying to kupata mutu, like getting somebody? Has it affected how you maneuver around relationships?
I'm a bit of an introvert. Actually, I'm a lot of an introvert. And I spend, I want to say 60 to 70% of the time by myself. And I like it that way. I work from home, I pitter-patter in my garden. I have a kitchen garden. And I think it's also when you've been alone for so long, you're not quite sure how to incorporate other people, somebody else in your space. And I think that makes it quite difficult. And, navigating, as we were talking before, you were telling me, oh my God, dating in your 30s. No, dating period is a navigation. It's got nothing. It's an extreme sport. It's character. It develops your character. It's got nothing to do with your 20s or your 30s or your 50s or whatever. It's just
a generic thing.
One person said to me, Wangeci, you're taking two different people. Even if, say, I was brought up here and you were brought up next door. The values that your parents instilled in you and the values that they instilled in me are different. And then you come and you put those two people together. Maybe I want to spend 10,000 shillings on a pair of shoes. But to you, you're thinking, but
that's investment.
That is an investment. Yes. And I'm thinking, I know, but I really want the pair of shoes. And you put those two people together. It's simple things like, I'm pressing the what do you call it, the Colgate, or rather
from the middle.
Toothpaste from the middle, and the other one is from the bottom.
From the bottom.
And toilet seat up, toilet seat down. It's silly things like those. Like I love to cook, and in my house, if you come to my house, I don't have ketchup, and my family loves ketchup. So eventually, like my brother who comes to visit me quite often, he has brought his own things because there's certain things you won't find in my house. I can't slave cooking for 2 hours and then you sit down to the steak and then you say, can I have ketchup? What do you mean? So you see, it's small things like that. You want those two people to get together and get along. It's tough.
Yeah.
And we need to accept that it's tough. And what do you call it? As your relationship, proceeds and it goes forward, yes, you learn to live with some of these things. But it starts to get on your nerves, and you start your little disagreements. And if you don't talk about it, that's when it explodes, and you're finding, maybe they're no longer together because it started with that toothpaste. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yes.
Interesting. At what point do you tell a man, like, as you're pursuing me, please know that kids are not in the picture for me?
First date.
Yes. And do they disappear?
Yeah. Some do. I don't date that often, but again, because I'm an introvert and because I like my time. I like the things that I do, and I don't want. And I think it's unfair of me to date somebody who probably wants to spend a lot of time with you and you don't know how to do that, because we all have our form of dysfunction. And I would say that that's probably my form of dysfunction, that I don't know how to have somebody in my space all the time. In fact, like if I go and visit my mother, etc., after 2 days, we are looking at each other like, it's time, exactly.
Yeah.
But I do say it on the first date, and I will say that, because you don't want somebody to have an expectation that you can't meet. So if you say it on the first date and someone says, okay, well, and I've had, one person who said, okay, that's fine and I understand. But later on, you find that they really do want them, and you've got to release them, because you know what? I always say that if one person wants 4 kids and the other one wants 0 kids, there's no compromise. They're both going to be unhappy. The person who didn't want them has now been forced. You're being told, okay, let's compromise and have 2. It's actually not a compromise. I didn't want them.
But yet, really,
just 2. Yeah, exactly. Let's just have 2. And you're thinking, no, I don't want them.
Because most men feel like maybe it's a phase you're going through. I might change your mind.
You might change your mind. And no, I'm not going to change my mind.
For you, it's like, no.
It's no.
And that's
anyway,
the period.
Think of it this way. I'm in my 50s. If I was to even conceive now, by the time I'm taking my child to kindergarten, I'm in my late 50s. I can't give them the crawling on the floor and doing all of those things that the child needs to be nurtured at that age. And they're bouncing off the walls and you're thinking, I sleep at 7. You know what I mean? We can't both sleep at 7 o'clock. Exactly. And then when you go to drop them to school, they're like, oh, or pick them. You're like, oh, your shasha is here to pick you up. Why would you do that to your child?
And also
Not even to you, but to your child. It's too much energy. I'm already thinking, okay, I love and like other people's children. I get to give them back. At the end of the day, you come visit, you're like, oh my God. I'm the auntie who's supposed to tatanize. I cook for them, bake cookies, spoil them, chocolate, donuts. That's what tatanize is about. But tatanize also has, a window where it's time to move on.
Wrap it up.
Let's wrap it
guys.
up. Exactly.
It's been real.
Let's see, it's been real. So yeah, I do say that on the first date.
Right, but there's always a question of legacy. People are like, oh, you have to leave a legacy behind. So do you worry, or rather, when it comes to matters legacy, how do you think your legacy will still live along?
I have a message, I want to leave the legacy that even if you can help one person, that's what's important. I don't, because, like what we talked about before, you're not defined by the fact you are somebody's wife or somebody's mother. It's about you, me, Wangeci. What, like you said, what legacy did I leave? Like, at my eulogy or at my funeral, what are people going to say? She was loud and she was obnoxious. And then, people tend to lie at funerals and say, oh my God, they were such a good person.
She was
but
an angel.
When you leave this earth, will you have left your mark because you were genuinely a good person? And through the work that I'm doing now, it's social. It's like a social enterprise. I want to change the lives of domestic workers and the way we see the domestic workers. And that is the legacy that I would like to leave behind. Yeah.
I asked this because I think we've seen instances where a parent wants you to pursue medicine because they want that legacy to remain in the family. But your toy comes and they say, I want to be a DJ. And parents are so disappointed. Do you think that's another challenge that we need to fix, where parents are tying the legacy and like the things they wanted to achieve around their kids, saying that you have to do this so that the legacy can continue?
Yes. I'll give myself as an example. I grew up wanting to be an architect. But you and I have just spoken about the fact that you like math and physics and all the rest of the things. And I am not that person.
You're just like...
I'm like, no, I'm not even good at it. But I grew up wanting to be an architect. And I remember my father telling me, and of course this was in the 80s, telling me, Wangeci, no one will hire you. You're a woman. And, it stuck with me. And before my father passed away, we had this conversation. And I said, because he saw, like, where I live, I turned a factory, my dad's factory, into a home. So I've rebuilt it, and changed everything inside, etc. And I made it into a loft. And when he came the first time, when I broke ground, the inside, because the outside was already there, he looked at me and he says, oh my God, you're so creative. I would never have thought what you've done with it. And then, so we had this conversation and I said, Daddy, you didn't want me to be an architect. And he says he couldn't remember and he apologized.
Oh.
And he said, I'm so sorry.
An African parent apologizing.
Yeah. And he says, I'm so sorry, my daughter. He said, that time when we grew up, we could see, there was the stigma that, you're a woman. What would you possibly know about drawing and putting up a building? And look at how many women architects there are now and developers and everything else. And these were typically not women's jobs.
Yeah.
We are supposed to be hotel managers. And even then there's a glass ceiling. And I'm very grateful that I had the relationship that I had with my dad, that he could actually say, I'm so sorry. But, this was in the 80s and the early 90s. And I never thought that, we would see this far, that a woman could come and tell you that, yeah, this is the building that I'm going to build.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
When I was telling you, I put out a question on my Instagram and I was asking people, do you guys have ladies who have chosen to be child-free? Because even I wanted to understand, because I feel like we judge women who have made that decision so harshly, but we don't know the backstory. And so as I was talking to one lady, she was telling me how she also gets a bit stigmatized in jobs where people have the assumption that if you don't have kids, or you've chosen not to have kids, they have this assumption that you're just a reckless person, so we cannot even trust you with some of those job opportunities. Is it something you've experienced?
Not so much. But, you do get the thing of, like, say when you're scheduling, when you're scheduling to work for Christmas or work New Year's, because of course at some point I was employed, you'll find that they'll tell you, but you don't have family, so you can work Christmas Day, you know, or you can work New Year's Day, because it's not like you have got people at home to take care of. And you also find that it's not just women that are stigmatized, like
even
we talked
men.
about, even men.
Yeah.
I have a friend who we talked about it, and he would say that he went for meetings, and these older men would be like, leave this one. He's a young one who has not even gotten married or whatever. So he's not serious. Why are you 30 and you don't have a wife? Exactly, you don't have a wife and you don't have kids, because they feel that settles you. Otherwise, you'll be jumping around everywhere and you're not serious. So it's not just about the women, men as well. We talked about this, how even men, if somebody is like, he's 40. Okay.
And that one I confessed. Maybe
yes.
I judge.
And
okay,
today
not judge.
but today is when you started thinking about it.
I'm like, you're 48.
Yes.
How now? When a red flag?
Exactly. You're not married. You don't have children.
Yeah,
what's going on here? Like, you're not as serious, but you're a player or whatever.
Because you always feel like they're either lying. You probably have like a family they
somewhere
don't talk about. They're trying to lure you in.
Exactly.
Or there's just something about them. But now when we had this conversation, I was like, wait, maybe it's also a personal decision where they said they don't want to have kids.
Yes.
So poleni.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
But imagine there are those men as well who don't want to have don't want to have children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think this is a conversation we need to have more? And because I don't think there are very many women who've come out and said, "Baby, I don't have toys," because they're scared of how people will take it. Like you're saying, people will say you're so selfish. Do you think that this is a conversation we need to have more often?
We do.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things in Africa that we need to talk about that we always feel that we can't talk about. Like when we were talking about, you don't want to talk about a miscarriage. You don't want to talk about the fact that you don't want to get married. You don't want to talk about the fact that, I don't like to wear dresses. There's so many things that we hide. It's such a secret. But there is a real stigma, and it's like when a couple gets married, and I have been guilty of this, a couple gets married, and within a year when they haven't had a baby, you're like, hey, boss, you guys, but what's happening? Time bad. And I did that to one of my closest friends, and I said to him, hey, what's happening, Bana? You guys are approaching 2 years. And he said to me, Wangeci, we've had like 3 miscarriages. We've tried everything. And when it happens, it's going to happen. And I felt so bad. I felt so bad about that. Because, we need to talk about the fact that there's a difference between childless and child-free. Childless is people who actually do want to have children but are unable to. Physically something is gone wrong, whether it's with whichever partner it is, right? And child-free is a choice. It's a choice. You are able to have children, you just don't want them. So we need to first mind your own business.
Right.
Yeah?
As we drink
Stop
water.
asking people when they're going to have children or when they're going to get married or anything like that. Because even when you're a single person, single is not half. You're not a half person. You were born alone.
I will say that again for the people at the back.
And this I heard from my pastor. I was like, what? Say it louder for the people in the back. And he kept saying, parents, stop forcing your girls to get married. This is not all they're about. There are so many things. They are doctors, they are lawyers, they are domestic workers, they are everything. So he kept reiterating that whole service. Single is not half. You're not a half person because you're a single person. Such as there's nothing wrong with you that you've decided not to have children. Shout it from the rooftop. But first, mind your own business. Yeah? Don't ask somebody why they decided not to have kids. Or don't ask somebody who's newly married after 1 year, like, hey, it's time. You need to, what's happening, and stop telling people they're going to have regrets as they get older. There's no one who's going to take care of you. If you've got goodwill, there'll be enough people who will take care of you.
That's true.
Yeah.
5 years from now, do you think that this is something that society would have accepted and will still be struggling?
We'll still be struggling.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why?
We don't know any other way. I think it's a conversation starter. But with Gen Z now and millennials and the alpha, the alphas, even I'm still looking at them, some of the questions that they ask us, and I'm thinking, oh my God,
those kids can drag you.
Yes, they can. So I'm like, because of them, it might actually begin to change. But as long as the boomers are still there, the baby boomers, and then of course us, Gen X, I think that it's still, we're still tiptoeing around it. We still don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
We're still, and it's almost as if like me sitting here, I know that some of my friends and family who obviously don't know that I'm talking about this are cringing. They're like, oh my God, I guess she said it out loud.
Yeah.
And like I said, you know, the things that I talk about regarding domestic workers and employers, if I can say that, I'm sure that I can talk about
Anything and
just
everything.
about anything and everything. So I hope we have more conversations.
Yeah.
I hope we stop judging so harshly, you know. Again, you know, I made the choice because I want to travel the world. You know, if I'm lucky enough to do that, I've traveled quite a bit. And even now when I take vacation, I go on vacation by myself because I don't want you to feel like when you say, oh my God, let's go to the museum. I'm like, no, not today. Today I'm sitting by the pool doing nothing. And I don't want you to be offended because, you know, we came together, but we don't have to do everything together. So I prefer to do that by myself. You know, it's like, you pick your, you know, I read somewhere where it said, the thing that you do on Sunday is who you are. So
What do I do on
if
Sunday?
you're religious, you spend a lot of time in church on Sunday. So you go like from the 8 service, 10 o'clock service, you know, you
Then
leave
after
2 o'clock, you've done like 10 different tithes and everything else. If you cycle, maybe you're cycling to Naivasha every Sunday or doing, you know, different cycling. And if you've got kids and you've got your partner, your day is Sunday. So you're taking, yes, you'll go to church, and most times, guys, don't hate on me for this. Most times it's mommy taking kids to church, you know, crash and everything else. And daddy will come and pick up later when we're going for lunch. We're going to go and eat pizza or whatever. Exactly, that's what we are going to do. That's the time, the family time. And the mother is also dropping the kids for birthday parties and everything else. You are who you are. That's your life. And I didn't want that for my life.
Yeah.
I didn't want I've seen my friends do it. You know, I've seen my younger sisters where we are going to the hospital in the middle of the night because they're sick, because kids tend to get sicker than, you know, than other people. And I didn't want that for my life, where I'm spending, you know, half my time in the hospital when they're younger. The crying in the middle of the night. I remember my younger sister, who is now a mom of 2, she would not sleep at night, and I would literally go and knock on my parents' door, and I'm like, give her to me. And we would be playing, you know, because there's an age gap. There's like a 20-year age gap. And, you know, we're crawling on the floor with her, and she's so happy. And then when we try to put her to sleep, I didn't want that.
You're like,
I didn't want the 20 questions. I don't want them.
I'm telling you, Gen Alpha is just a different breed. But tukifanya collabo ya Gen Alpha, Gen Z, and a bit of millennial, I feel like we can change this narrative.
I think we could.
We could.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah.
We could.
And please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we are encouraging it and saying, please don't have children. I'm just
That's
saying,
not at
if you
all.
don't want to have children,
Yes.
it's okay.
It is okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. You know, it's like when it's like choosing a career. You can decide that you want to be a bum, but
Or
you
you
can
want to be a
support yourself.
stay-at-home wife.
Yes, so you want to be a second wife. You've decided that you want to be the second wife for you. It is a choice, and everybody is allowed to have
Their own choice.
their own choice.
Absolutely.
But you cannot judge people on their choice.
Simply
Telling
because
them
it's
you're
not
making
your choice.
because it's not your choice. You're making a mistake if you don't do this. And you know, the people who said, you know, like some of my aunts would be like, okay, now that you've hit 40 and you've decided there's no husband coming, so you know, so you bring us a child. And I'm like, you know, the child doesn't come from the tree. They're like, but you're a woman and you know how to do these things. And it really offended me, because how many people think like that? That you're thinking to yourself, it's okay, I'll have one. But what about that person? Did that person have did you give that person a choice?
No.
You didn't. You set them up. Why would you do that? And then you're
it's
unhappy.
encouraging you to go
and
sleep with
have a
somebody
child
and
out
just
of
have a child
wedlock and
and
just have a child.
Okay.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Even as we bring this to a close,
Yes.
I'm thinking of that young girl, or maybe even a lady in her 40s, 30s, 50s, whatever age, and they've actually decided they never want to have children, but they're afraid to speak about it. They're afraid to bring it up. Maybe they have to keep lying to people to survive the whole situation. What do you have to tell that person when you look at this camera?
You don't have to lie about it. we have freedom of choice. It is your choice, and you have to live with it. And when the person says, just have one, they're not holding your hand when you're taking the child to the hospital. When they say, just have one, they're not holding your hand when you're trying to find school fees for this child. They're not with you when you need to clothe them. They're not with you when you need to find the perfect nanny to take care of your child. And like I said, there's a person who plays the lead role in childbearing, and that is the mother. And any way you look at it, a father or a partner is a supporting actor. And I may have people who are in arms of this, but just think about it for a minute. I have a child today. I'm the 9 months. The hospital runs. If you today, even as a woman, and you are a parent and you have your partner, you want to know who plays the lead role in this production? Ask your partner, what is your child's favorite color? What food do they like to eat? What are their grades like in school? Did they have a fight in school today? Do they like Cocoa Pops? And I can tell you, yes, as a father and as a partner, you are the person who brings in, you're taking care of your family. But these days we need both incomes. Life is hard for you to be able to run your home. You're struggling out there, but so is your wife, or your partner. And she too has a role to play, and she's probably working full time. You're working full time to make it so that your children have a better life than you've had. But again, there is a person who plays the leading role, and you are the support system. So it's okay to decide that you don't want that leading role. And that way you won't even have, the support, the casting support or support casting or whatever it is, that there's going to be somebody else. You've made that choice, but make that choice for yourself. Do not make that choice for society. I've never, been the person who toes the line the way I am supposed to. So, but there is somebody right out there right now who's struggling with that and saying that, everyone keeps asking that question. And you know what? You can push back and say truthfully, it is none, and it's okay to say it's none of your business. We're told not to say that, but truly, I think it is none of your business as to you coming to me, and unless you're a close friend of mine or a family member, and I mean, your close family, my brother, my sister, my mother, they can ask me that question. And my closest friends, because we've had a relationship. But you coming off the street and asking me, why didn't you have children, and you're going to regret it or whatever, it truly is none of your business. So don't feel that you have to explain to anybody. It is your life.
And is it fair to say that you don't owe anybody a child?
You do not owe anyone even an explanation as to the path you choose for yourself. Yes.
And, I just want to bring this to a close, even as you prepare to tell us how we can get in touch with you. I know you're very passionate about domestic workers. You don't only focus on the domestic workers, but also the employers.
In fact, I focus, on
mainly
the
on the employer.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's also an area we need to fix.
Yes.
But I just want to give people food for thought. What would you prefer? A woman who gets a child, and we keep coming here to see news that a child has been dumped in the pit latrine, or a woman who says, by the way, to be honest, this is not my cup of tea and I don't want to have children? Who's better? Think about it. How can we get in touch with you on your social media platforms?
On my social media platforms, it's Good Housekeeping Africa. And you can also email us at info@Good Housekeeping Africa. And we have a website, which is also very interactive. You'll find videos there, any questions you have. I've written several books on, how to manage your domestic workers at home, how to train your domestic workers. In fact, that one is free. You can download it any time. And again, that particular URL is goodhousekeeping.africa.
Alrighty, beautiful. Thank you so much, Wangeci.
Thank you so much, Susan, for having me. I have as well. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. I feel like we had a pre-interview, then we did the interview.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
But you have been awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Alrighty, and have a good one. And thank you for keeping us company right here at A Woman's Journal. My name is Susan Grace. See you next time.
Thank you.